history, the way it is taught today, is skewed. A foreign media house, a foreign channel has to come and tell us about Sinoli. How many people actually know that the Bhakti movement goes back, to so many centuries?
Hello, very good evening. Namaste and welcome back to Citti Media. I'm your host, Citti. Joining me for a conversation today, back on the channel again, is Mr. Rausan Pereira. Frank ji, thank you so much. Namaste. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so very much for having me once again, Sharan. It's a very interesting and an intriguing topic, I must say, that we are going to be discussing today. Let's take it forward.
It's going to be definitely very interesting because you are also engaged in educating thousands of youths. First, you did that through your interviews and through your programs. And right now, Bharata First has taken off so successfully. And so many of your students study history, study geopolitics, and different other subjects on your channel. Now, what I want to also address is there are different institutions which call themselves as UPSC coaching centers. Now, the one in question here, Vision IAS Academy, we could see that this particular teacher in question, so confidently and rather so arrogantly teaching a very wrong version of history with so much hubris. I think that is where we are going wrong. And is it not a crime to teach history in such a manner?
It always has been. I mean, because history, of course, is the past, but the past too, with modern science and with new findings, can change. Don't forget, history is also written by and recorded by courtesans of kings and those who are in power. And the facts can be twisted, manipulated, and turned as and when it is required. That has been the case with history being recorded right through the course of mankind's history. It is the same case with visiting visitors who visit kingdoms, visitors who go through different empires. They will obviously sing tales of the kings because they are being entertained by the king, so to speak. With new findings, with unbiased information coming out, history also needs to change. Otherwise, what is the point of trying and getting some of these new findings? For instance, Sinoli debunked the entire theory that horses came from north of India into India. We had horses here. Sinoli very clearly says that, very clearly shows that, showcases that, the carriages that we had, the kind of weapons that we had, debunks so many theories. So why not update history as and when new findings come through? My biggest problem with the administration, is that despite several of these things being found, despite several of these new facts and figures coming out, they are not getting their due. I watched this Sinoli documentary and I decided to go and have a look at Sinoli and see what's there. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So what's the point of unearthing this great big find there in Sinoli, a few kilometers away from Delhi? It's not like it's in some remote place where you can't take equipment, you can't take machinery, and you can't get archaeologists to sit and go through the survey the site. No, a foreign media house, a foreign channel has to come and tell us about Sinoli. What are we doing? Where are we? Where are we going? Why aren't we talking about our history? We should be proud of these things. This is much before the invaders came into this country. This goes thousands of years back. And this is tangible proof. It is not even speaking in the air. It is tangible proof right in front of us that we are not doing anything about. That is what I have a problem with.
Very wonderfully put. One of the questions that students today are asking is, now amid the entire controversy, one group is saying, no, this is the correct version of history, which we have been subscribing to for a very long time. And suddenly there is a particular ecosystem which is challenging the current narrative, right? But to pass an exam and to secure good marks, which one do you have to subscribe to? And I mean, although this is not probably a very ethical thing to do for students, because you'll be inheriting a certain indoctrination which is supposed to not happen.
Students have no choice. If you're talking about UPSC, you're talking about one of the toughest exams out there. The difference between getting an IAS, IPS, IFS, or any one of the ranks, any one of the 22 services that you have, all India services, it's 1 mark. And whether you qualify for the next round also is dependent on that one mark. So how can you tell a student to go away from what is in the syllabus, or how can you tell the student to go away from this? Especially knowing also there is a certain section of that very same community that you are talking about is going to be correcting those answer sheets and going to be marking you as well. So where is the scope for you to go astray? Where is, not go astray, sorry, I take back my words. Where is the place, where is the leeway for you to talk about true history? There is no leeway at all, because the textbooks do not have a clear reflection of what true history really has to be. Now you're talking about this particular issue, you know, of the Bhakti movement.
Yeah.
How many people actually know that the Bhakti movement, it goes back, you know, to so many centuries? We talk about Sufism and we talk about all of that much later. But the Bhakti movement started in southern India, started somewhere in Tamil Nadu in the 7th and 8th century. You know, Raja Raja Chola the first was one of the first few proponents of the Bhakti movement, Bhakti preachings, and you know, he spoke about it at length. Also, if you go to some of the temples in Tamil Nadu, you will see carvings of Nayanars and Alvars all over the place, and these temples are thousands of years old. So the Nayanars are, you know, the original proponents of the Bhakti movement, and they are followers of Shiva, whereas the Alvars are followers of Vishnu. So this goes back, you know, to centuries, thousands of years. So why isn't all of this mentioned in our textbooks? When we talk about the Bhakti movement, it talks about, you know, oh, there was this caste system problem in India, and you know, the Bhakti saints decided to go ahead and abolish caste system. What is caste system? Who brought about this caste system? And we make such a big deal about the caste system today. Tomorrow's caste is going to be, are you a doctor's son? Are you an engineer's son? Are you a rich person's son or not? And that segregation and division is definitely going to be made. There is a difference. The caste system was brought about by others to ensure that they get their piece of the pie and they get their way as far as you know, India is concerned. Otherwise, our scriptures very clearly speak about varnas, and there is a big difference between the varnas and the caste system itself as it prevails today. That we will leave for another time and another discussion, because today we are talking about history, but history really has to be told in the right way, especially with new facts and figures. And it doesn't have to start at UPSC. It has to start in our textbooks at the primary school level. Unfortunately, even with the national education policy, the new education policy, so much is being spoken about, nothing is seen as tangible proof, unfortunately.
Yeah, you bring about a very interesting point, because if you look at this in retrospect, a lot of the students who have today become IAS and IPS officers have graduated in the recent past. I'm talking about 5 to 6 years, you know, from that same academy. So regardless of whether a particular government is in power or the opposition is in power, now that mindset has continued ever since you know, our independence. And why haven't we been able to reform our civil services as much as other countries have been able to, is what a lot of international experts also ask, because India was not the only country that went through colonialism, right? Colonialism as an experience was shared by many other countries. And these countries have a very robust civil services structure today. So why and where did India lag behind?
Political will. It's as simple as that. You don't want to give the bureaucracy a chance to reform itself. The bureaucracy, let's not forget, was a system that was put in place by the Britishers. Everything that has been put in place by the Britishers get a lot of credit for the Indian railways. They didn't make the Indian railways for the passengers, or didn't make the Indian railways for you and me, or for our ancestors, for our grandfathers. They made the Indian railways, they made the connectivity because it would suit them. In the same way, the administrative service also was put in place to suit their needs, so that we can be answerable to the master, so to speak. Unfortunately, change has not taken place. You know, there have been efforts that have been made in the 70s, then later on as well, to try and bring about some kind of administrative reforms, but it hasn't happened. consecutive successive governments have not had the political will to go ahead and bring about these administrative reforms. Actually, it's not administrative reforms that we need political reforms. If the political class is reformed and we see some reform there, automatically that is going to percolate down to the Indian police service, it is going to percolate down to the Indian administrative service and everywhere else too. So that is where we need to see the change. Of course, there are a few things that we can do as far as the administrative service is concerned as well. If you look at it, you look at the number of transfers that we see. Every 6 months, the person has not even unpacked his things in a place. He's asked to, he's transferred somewhere else. So all these things need to go, but they will not go because there is no political will. It's as simple as that. The politicians need to feel that power and need to feel that they can have a hold or they have some kind of a say when it comes to administrative processes as well. That is the problem.
This is interesting. A lot of my friends who have now qualified for the UPSC, some of them who are also mentored by you, tell me that, the dependency on bureaucracy as an institution to formulate and implement laws is gradually reducing because even the bureaucracy depends on, think tanks and other institutions like that. Is that true? And to what degree is this?
Formulation of laws coming about with changes, there is very little that the administration can really do. Their hands are tied any which ways. They are more, in the form of within the system, what best they can do, they have to do. That's how it is. There is nothing that they can do out of the box really as far as the bureaucracy or administrative service is concerned. So their hands to a large extent are really tied. And that is the biggest challenge really as far as the bureaucracy is concerned, because they have to focus on ensuring that their deliverables are met. They have to ensure that the person on the ground at the end of the day who comes to him with some kind of a problem, his problem is addressed within the framework and within the guidelines that are available. You can't go beyond your objective, because that becomes a big problem as well, because there are so many checks and balances that are in place too to have a look at all of these things that are in the way. So it's it's complicated. It's not very simple. It's not at all simple. It's highly complicated, and it has to be addressed with an iron fist and a velvet glove.
If you were to compare models of bureaucracy from around the world, which one do you think is an ideal model according to you? And although the comparative advantage may not necessarily be there with India because we have our own institutions, the way it is structured. So what example would you give? And also, what are the reforms that we actually need for our bureaucracy in terms of, what are the limitations that it should have? And also, what are the powers that it must be given in the future?
I think there is a need for a mindset change. I'm going to answer the second part of your question first. There is this whole sense of, when you speak about bureaucracy, even the students or the candidates who want to get through into the system, now, of course, because of all the coaching that is available, because of everything else that is available, the word power is not uttered too much, but it is always ingrained somewhere in the back of the head, that bureaucracy, IAS, IPS means power. Now that somehow needs to go, and we need to have a service mentality as far as the IAS and the IPS are concerned. It's not like it's not there. There are some wonderful, really good officers out there who are doing some back-breaking, amazing work. It's not like, good work is not being done. But the general consensus is that IPS and IAS means power. And once we go there, we are untouchable. These DMs and DCs are given these magnificent offices, big plush spaces to work from. You get that sense of, superiority as well. And especially when you come from a background where you've not seen all of this power or this kind of authority can get to some people's heads as well. Of course, there is a lot of work that is being done, with the Bharat Darshan, with the training and everything else. But beyond the point, there is not much that happens. We need to invest a lot in refresher training. We need to understand, we need to keep the bureaucracy up to date with the changing times. They need to be abreast with what's happening around them, and then accordingly function and accordingly move forward. We need to look at specialization really as well, because a lot of focus now is being given on lateral entry. That is another issue that is being spoken about. Now, lateral entry is being looked at. Why? Because there is lack of specialization within the bureaucracy itself to carry out certain expert tasks. So that too needs to be done. And as far as improving or what more needs to be done with regards to our bureaucracy is, I think, a little more coach training, at least in the initial years, to let them understand the real situation on the ground and bring in a service mentality. It is not an administrative mentality that you need. It's Indian civil service. It's about serving the people, serving at the grassroots rather than serving your master. That needs to change. The system has been put in place by the Britishers to serve the master, but we need to reverse that and ensure that we serve at the grassroots levels and then look at the master. That these are some of the changes that we need to bring about. As far as comparisons with other bureaucracies around the world are concerned, it's very difficult to make that comparison because India is unique. There is no country like Bharata. My Bharata is a brilliant nation. It's an amazing nation. It's a versatile nation. It's a diverse nation. And no other country can even come this close to what we have here. So it's very difficult for us to replicate a model and say that, maybe that model has worked there, so it will work here. No, it's a model that we need to come up with. The problem with the existing model is that it is not our model. It has been thrust down our throats. It has been forced, and we are doing somebody else's bidding through this model. If we can come up with our own model, that is what will ensure real change.
Wonderful. Before we wrap up, sir, I want to ask you this. How does one differentiate in what they read as right and wrong? Because obviously, for instance, I'm someone who would read both Vikram Sampath and Romila Thapar, but I can come to my own judgment. And especially since a lot of these students who are going to these coaching institutions, have certain strong opinions in the future, and that is going to get reflected on the policies that they implement as well. So it's very critical that they understand history in a certain manner. So how would you advise your audience or those who follow you to sort of understand history? What would your advice be to, in how they need to read history and understand it?
It's very simple. See, read everything. There is no harm in reading. Knowledge never stops. But also have the ability and the capacity to understand what each one is saying and then come to your own conclusion. Nobody is saying that, you should take somebody else's opinion. You be so well informed that you can make an informed choice about a particular subject or about a particular topic. As far as the examination goes, you raised a very good point, and this is something that I'd like to address. History, the way it is taught today, is skewed. It is misrepresented, and it is not the true history of Bharata. It is not the right history. But to clear the exam, you have to take this history in and only then put it out on paper so that you can get your marks and you can go through. As future administrators of this country, as the future of this country, not just future administrators of this country, because there's a lot that they can do. It's unfortunate that we have to be going through this phase. But here is where the authorities need to put their foot down and say that enough is enough. This has been going on for too long. We are a great nation. We are a knowledge center. We are a nation which has given so much to this world. If each and every one of us can believe that, can understand that, and can know where we are coming from and why we are here today, I think that informed choice can be made by the individual itself. And the authorities too need to go the extra mile and ensure that this information comes out in the right places so that everybody can get access to it, see it, and then make up their own mind about it. Unfortunately, this information is not out in the open in the right kind of places like textbooks of schools and other places, NCERT textbooks and everywhere else. That is the problem. And that's why people tend not to believe it or tend to think that maybe this is not true.
I'm sure the last bit where you're advising the students will go extremely viral on YouTube, because I think this is the answer that a lot of people have been asking for, and you've put that in a very beautiful manner. So thank you so much for joining me. I know you've had a very busy day. Thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Always a pleasure, Sharan. Thank you so much for having me. Love to speak on this, and Good that we took this up and spoke about this also so elaborately. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.